Well, we wouldn't want Christmas to come without making a visit to our favorite website, Everyday Feminism. Because Everyday Feminism is where women go at Christmas to learn how to perform useful womanly activities like baking those sensational star-shaped shortbread cookies and complaining endlessly about every little thing until they make themselves and everyone around them miserable. Except I was kidding about the cookies. Today on Everyday Feminism, there's a post called Five Gaslighting Phrases Donald Trump Used That Remind Me a Lot of My Abusive Ex-Boyfriend by Susanna Weiss. I'm not making this up. Now, gaslighting is an expression that comes from an old stage play in which an evil husband tries to make his wife think she's going crazy by, among other things, turning the gas lights up and down and then pretending he doesn't see the change. To gaslight someone means to tell them that they're not seeing what they obviously see. You can try it yourself by telling a friend, there are no Muslims blowing things up and killing people. Anyone who sees that must be Islamophobic. Just watch, it'll drive them nuts. Anyway, back to Everyday Feminism. One phrase Donald Trump used that reminded Susanna Weiss of how her abusive ex-boyfriend used to gaslight her is, I never said I'm a perfect person. This phrase reminded Susanna Weiss of how her abusive ex-boyfriend used to borrow money from her and not pay her back. When she would complain, he would say, I never said I was a perfect person, and then she would forgive him and loan him more money, leading us to question Susanna Weiss's intelligence. Now she's crying and moaning about all the money she loaned him, but that's ridiculous. After all, the man never said he was a perfect person. Another gaslighting phrase Trump used that reminded Susanna Weiss of her abusive ex-boyfriend was, this is nothing more than a distraction from the important issues. This reminded Susanna Weiss of how she would try to discuss things like gay marriage with her abusive ex-boyfriend, and he would say, why discuss gay marriage when there are some places where gay people are being killed? Really, come to think of it, that's a good point. So maybe on that one, Susanna Weiss should have tried to focus on the more important issues. Trump also accused Hillary Clinton of playing the woman's card. This reminded Susanna Weiss of that time she was watching a movie with her abusive ex-boyfriend, and a sexy nude scene came on, and Susanna Weiss told her abusive ex-boyfriend that it was sexist because it was always the women in movies who were nude, and he said she was just playing the woman card, and she got all whiny about it because obviously she didn't realize that he was just trying to get her to pipe down so he could enjoy the hot naked babes. So, as we can see, there are many ways Donald Trump reminds Susanna Weiss of her abusive ex-boyfriend. There are also many ways Susanna Weiss reminds me of a really annoying girl I used to go out with, who was also named Susanna Weiss. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Merry Christmas, Everyday Feminism. I love it. It's the site that gives all year. It's the least we can do. All right, who is this out there with the? What is this?
It's Lord's leaping, so it's Lord Voldemort leaping.
Lord Voldemort leaping. I should have known that, of course. But thank you, Austin, for the 12 days of Andrew Klavan Christmas. I hope it's been brilliant stuff. Mailbag tomorrow. Tomorrow is the mailbag. You must subscribe to the Daily Wire to be in the mailbag. The end of the year will come, and you won't have your questions answered. But if you subscribe, you can send in your questions, and we will answer them with 100% guaranteed accuracy, 98.5% guaranteed to change your life, possibly for the better. So be there for this. So there's a lot of, it was almost like a Klavanless weekend day yesterday throughout Europe. A lot of violence going on. Obviously, that horrific assassination of the Russian ambassador to Turkey, which was caught on video because the ambassador was making a speech in an art gallery, and the guy who killed him was a security guy, was a police guy, and was standing right next to him, just blew him away and started shouting Allahu Akbar and about Syria. We're dying in Syria. You're killing us in Syria. We'll kill you here. I have to say that Vladimir Putin handled this really well. I'm going to become a Trump guy. I like Putin. He's one of these. He's a strong. But he did. He said that this is obviously they're trying to cause a rift between Turkey and Russia, and he's not going to let it happen. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing. You do not want people. People have gone to war over less than this, and you don't want that happening. But it was just a shocking moment, I have to say. Even at this point, where we're all getting inured to it. But the one that I want to talk about is the one in Berlin. This is, they have these they call them Christkindlmarkt. It means, it's a Christmas market, a Christmas children market. I think there are now 12 dead. A guy drove his truck in, like the one in Nice. Drove his truck in, just wiped people out with it. They have arrested a Pakistani immigrant at this point, but they're not sure. I'm not sure if it's the right guy. One of the police spokesmen said they might not have the right guy, and or somebody else may still be on the loose with a gun. So it's a scary situation. These things, these Christmas markets. I was at the one in Munich, which has been there since like the 13th, 14th century. And it really, first of all, they're beautiful. I write about this in The Great Good Thing. They're like stepping into a Christmas card. You get there and it's snowy and beautiful Christmas tree. There's children singing, markets all over the place where they're selling, very beautiful old-fashioned toys and things like this. And so, but this is an old Christmas tradition. So the symbolism here is really, really intense. These people feel like they have been invaded. Angela Merkel has let in hundreds of thousands of these refugees, and people feel like they're under invasion. And even before this crisis that was brought on by the bobbling of the ball of our leaders, including Barack Obama, that let Syria devolve into the civil war and all these refugees coming in. But even before this, there was a sense in Europe that they were being invaded by an alien population. Let's listen to a British tourist, Emma Rushton, who was in the market when this happened. This is an interview she gave to Sky News.
So I'm running on adrenaline at the moment, so everything's coming out quite fast. So we arrived at lunchtime today. I've never been to Berlin before, first holiday, and we decided to wander down to the Christmas market and partake in some of the mulled wine and whatever else was on offer. And we sat and we were drinking, and very luckily I broke my leg a few years ago and have to sit down for a lot longer than I would normally. My friend said, let's go. And I said, well, give me 2 minutes. And then we heard a really loud bang and saw some of the Christmas lights to our left starting to be pulled down. And then we saw the articulated vehicle going through people and through the stalls and just pulling everything down. And then everything went dark. So it was very difficult to be there.
Yeah. So, the Interior Minister of Germany came out and said, we're at war. We're at war. And the thing about that war, though, is that lady is in the war. And that's not the way wars usually go. I mean, wars are usually fought on battlefields, or in the past have been fought in battlefields. And yes, civilians get caught up in it. But this is a war that is taking place against civilians, against ladies like that. Here she goes on to talk about how she got out.
Yeah, there was lots of screaming. There were lots of people yelling. So the stall that we bought our mulled wine from was completely crushed, and there were people tearing off the wooden panels to get the people out. Luckily, everyone in there was pulled out. But as we walked, we just wanted to get back to the hotel as quickly as possible. We just didn't want to stay because we didn't know if something else was going to happen or whether we just didn't know. We just didn't know. And we saw people and we just had to kind of steel our eyes and just walk through. And I wanted to stop and help, but we just wanted to make sure that we were safe, firstly.
Yeah, well, you hear that. It's very moving because, of course, these are people out there, celebrating Christmas. As I said, I've been to these markets, the one in Munich, and it really is a beautiful, beautiful, uplifting experience. And to have these guys invading it is really, a symbol of something that has gone terribly wrong. See, this is the thing. When these attacks take place, it's a very emotional moment. And you often hear the left guys, nutcases like Paul Krugman of the New York Times, will say, oh, well, I hope it's it's probably a right-wing white male or something like, I hope that, as if that would change the situation we're in. If a right-wing white male were to go on a rampage, heaven forfend, and kill somebody, that would mean that there was a crazy right-wing white male. What this means is it is reminding us of a steady state of a problem that we're in, of an overall arching problem. We're not only watching a bad idea in the sense that Islamism is a bad idea, we're watching the true collapse of the elite's great idea, what they thought was their great idea, has failed, and it has failed everywhere. And this is why the British are leaving the EU. This is why there's Brexit. This is why there's Donald Trump. This is why the Italian government fell. This is why Angela Merkel, who may be in big trouble when she is up for re-election next year, this is why the people are revolting. The idea has failed, and the idea that has failed is that experts should rule us, that the elites should rule us, that the elites know best. This idea has been in the wind at least since the Enlightenment. It's really been around since Plato, I think. This idea that there is a right way to be, you can reason your way to the right way. Wise men are those people who can reason well. Therefore, wise men should tell you what to do. And they argue, well, you're not unfree, because no free man who was wise would do anything other than what we're telling you to do. And this is why they hate religion, because religion sort of says, no, it's you, inside you, each one of you, where the truth resides. The truth does not reside in a panel of experts. It is not to be reached entirely by reason. It has to be reached to some degree by revelation and to some degree by feeling your way. There is no science of morality, and there is no way that the experts can do it. And this is the idea behind communism. This is the idea behind every totalitarian government, and it is collapsing. They let listen, this is not to attack Islam in general. There are 1.6 billion Islamic people in the world. There's no doubt in my mind that some of them use Islam to connect with the true God. I'm sure that is true. The problem is that there is something in Islam, and always has been, that is antithetical to the West. The West was built The West, as we know it, was built at war with Islam. Islam was trying to wipe out Europe. Europe won and established itself, and Islam faded into primitivism, essentially. And in every country where Islam is the majority religion, not perhaps in every single country, but in most countries, there is oppression, there is inequality, there is a mistreatment of women that is just, I love to make fun of feminism, but I'm deeply committed to the rights of women, which I consider to be two antithetical things, two things that are opposed to one another. But there is a problem with letting people in these numbers who might hold a philosophy that is completely opposed to everything we love. And you can't sit in a room with a bunch of experts and say, yes, but this makes us feel so good. You see, we understand. The people may be prejudiced. What we understand that, this is the good, this is the great global thing that we have to go forward. Bret Stephens wrote a column today about something entirely different that had an insight in it that was so brilliant. Sometimes people say things that put into words things you're already thinking, and you think, that's really great. But every now and again, somebody comes up with an idea that just has not occurred to you, that is so right that the minute you read it, it's like bingo. And Bret Stephens is interesting because I had real problems with him during the election. He went off on Ted Cruz, I felt, without any evidence, without supplying at least any evidence that his attacks on Cruz were justified. I thought he was wrong. I thought he was, I didn't necessarily think he was wrong in his attacks on Donald Trump, but I thought he was being blind to what was happening. He wasn't listening to the people and what their discontents were. And he is an elite. He's a very elitist kind of guy, and he doesn't understand why people get upset about immigration. However, he's also a brilliant, capacious mind with a real moral compass. And so you don't reject people because they're wrong, because everybody's wrong sometimes. And sometimes I thought Bret Stephens was wrong, but at least he's thinking about why he was wrong. And he wrote a piece today, and I'm sure it went to press way before the terrorist attacks, about regulations. And this is something I hump about all the time, too many regulations. And he talks about the fact that the World Bank published a survey on how friendly governments are to business. And the United States under Obama has fallen in that survey. When Obama took office, the U.S. was third in the overall index of how easy it was to do business here. And now it is, I think it's eighth. It's in eighth place since Obama came in. And everything has become harder. It's become harder to start a business. It's become harder to enforce a contract. All these things have become harder because of regulations. And this is part of what's driving people crazy in the Midwest and part of the manufacturing class. And here's Stephen's insight that is just Brilliant. You know, I think I'm going to cut off here and get to that insight in just a minute. We have to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Come on over to the Daily Wire. You can hear the rest, and you can subscribe, and you can watch the whole thing on the site. You never have to go on Facebook or YouTube. You can just watch it on the site if you subscribe, and then you can be in the mailbag and ask your questions for tomorrow.